السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كلنتي وعنا ونكسن كسر دوادا إلى ستيفي ومانتو سبتة إذن كسر تبني إن حرونتي إلى ستيفي لندن داوا إلى قضبة أن مانتو يدقى إنه حكم دا جامعة برينغهام يودى كان إنجليز قال لو قبت حسك مانتو حسوق أوغادن خبركها شحوق لسان كأوغادن وحكلام برنامج كسر قادم دونا خطبة جهاد ONLF أجوري برلمان كيوروب. waxaa ka dhacay jaamacada Birmingham kala lagu magacdaray Ogaden Massacre mid kaas oo sanadkii labaad lagu qabtay isla jaamacadaasi kaasay soo qaban qaabeen ardayda jaamacadu munaasabadna barardiqda waxa lagu soo saaray tacadiyada iyo xasuuqa joogtada ee dhulka Soomaalida Ogaden ee ka dhacay 20 sano u dambeeyay warbixintaas oo faahfaahsan ku soo dhawaada.
Hi everyone, good evening and welcome to Ogaden Massacre Day. Thank you for being with us here today.
Jaamacada Birmingham oo kamida jaamacadaha ugu waaweyn wadanka Ingiriiska ayaa lagu qabtay baroordiiq loo sameeyay xasuuqa ka socda Ogaden. Munaasabadan ayaa soo jiitay dhalinyaro tiro badan oo wax ka barta jaamacadaha Birmingham. Munaasabadan baroordiiqda xasuuqa Ogaden oo markii labaad lagu qabtay jaamacadan waxaa soo qaban qaabiyay ardayda wax ka barata Jaamacada Birmingham University.
I've been a huge supporter of BMA here at the University of Birmingham, so I did attend last year's event regarding the Ogaden Massacre, and I find it so powerful that again BMA have decided to organise this event in order to continue to raise awareness and bring people together to focus upon the atrocities that are happening in the region and to speak about what they can do personally to help and show solidarity with the Ogaden community.
dhalinyarada wax ka barta jaamacadan waxa barnaamijkan ku helinayay ururka dhalinyarada OYSU Midland kuwaas oo olole wacyigelineed ka waday jaamacadaha Midlandka. baroordiiqdan waxaa lagu soo bandhigay tacadiyadii gumeysiga Itoobiya ka geysteen dhulka Ogaden 20 sano ee la soo dhaafay waxaana la soo bandhigay qisooyin iyo dhacdooyin qiiro badan oo dhibanayaal ka soo jeeda Ogaden iyo qabsatay.
I was taken away with two men, Hassan Abdi Abdullahi and Ahmed Ghani Guled. First they pulled ropes around the necks of the two men and pulled in opposite directions and both fell down. They put me in a ditch while they were strangling the other two. One soldier tried to strangle me with a metal stick used for cleaning the gun by pushing it down on my throat, but I twisted his finger until he released me. Then two other soldiers came and they put a rope around my neck and started pulling. That is the last thing I remember until I woke up still in the ditch. A naked body was on top of me. It was Ahmed Ghani Guled who was dead. I couldn't move out of the ditch until I was found by some woman who came to the water hole.
baroordiiqdan waxaa cambaarayn korka looga saaray taliska Itoobiya iyada oo lagu eedeeyay xasuuqa iyo cunaqabataynta uu ku hayo shacbiga Soomaalida Ogaden.
I call for the international community to investigate the crimes against humanity that take place in the Ogaden. The Ethiopian government is hiding the true picture in the Ogaden, and if they have done something positive, why don't they allow media and international investigation? There is no development in the region. We are calling all humans, whether they are Muslim or not Muslim, to help us fight for our rights, to support us and do not trust the big lie of the Ethiopian-based TV and Jigjiga administration.
baroordiiqdan waxaa isha si gooni ah lagu saaray waxyeelada haweenka loo geysto. Zainab oo kamid ah ururka OYSU ayaa munaasabadan baroordiiqda ku soo bandhigtay seminar wacyigelineed oo looga hadlayo dhibaatada kufsiga iyo raadku ku reebo haweenka.
Rape is one of the most common crimes committed against the Ogaden women, and it is used as a weapon of war to degrade the women, especially in the presence of their family. Although when a woman is raped, whether she is in a conflict area or in a country like this, it affects them both physically, mentally, and spiritually, socially, all aspects of their life gets affected. But what we need to remember is for the Ogaden woman, it is not just a regular rape. It's a purposeful crime. Well, the people who rape our women are soldiers who are trained to commit it. They are trained to cause harm. They are powerful, they are strong. Women in the Ogaden, when they don't get raped only by one person, however, they are gang raped. And also, not only once, they are raped repeatedly, and also that is coupled with torture while they raped.
juweeriya oo barnaamijkan qabanqaabadiisa qaybta ugu weyn lahayd isla markaasna xiriirinaysay kulankan ayaa dhalinyarada jaamacadda u soo bandhigtay dood cilmiyeed lagu gorfaynayay sida ugu habboon ee dhibaatada ka jirta Ogaden looga muujin lahaa warbaahinta caalamka iyo doorka dhalinyaradu ka qaadan karto.
We tend to push our responsibilities away and our sense of belonging to Somalia. If you go down to Coventry Road and you see a Somali and you say, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Holland, I'm from Sweden. They just don't want to have that sense of identity that they're from Somalia. And I think we've got to drill down that point on our younger generation, and they're the keys and meant to be our main focus in prosperity for our country.
I think people have to have an agenda, or you have to get something out of it. It's not a one-way thing. Like, if the USA was to help you, what would they gain from it? Like, they have to look at their own benefit before they look at the benefit of like others. So
Every state, it doesn't matter if they're in Africa, if it's the UK, the Parliament, they all have corruption. We've seen on the Parliament questions, whenever they're debating something which affects us, cuts, child sex scandals, no one is there. But when they're discussing Parliament pay, expenses scandal, every single MP member is there. And it's all to do with their interests. And if our MPs don't feel like we are interested in a certain subject, will they turn up? No. We need to make them, they're supposed to work for us, not work for themselves and for their own pay.
I think the problem here is, first and foremost, we're pointing fingers at each other and, you know, dictators or media outlets or everything out there except us, because at the end of the day we're meant to just go out there and research and try to help people ourselves. We're waiting for people to help us, kind of thing, or help them, where we're meant to, you know, go out of our way, support a cause and not care what people think. We care too much nowadays about what your friends think or what you know, other people think rather than what you believe in.
anigu hadda waxaan la hadlayaa dhalinyarada ayaan la hadlayaa waxaan jeclaan lahaa inaan fariin siiyo fariintaasna waxay tahay dhalinyaradu aan wax barano saan maartii wadankeenu caawino iyo dadkeena saan caawino hadda eventkan joogo waxa weeyaan event kale sida dhibaatooyinka haysta Ogaden marka waxaan dhibaatooyinka Ogaden haysta uga bixi karno waxa weeyaan haddaan wax barano aanu barano wax saan uga baxay dhibaatooyinka barada marka wax barashada marka soo dhaafana la isku duubnaado ayaa la kala bixin la isku duubna hadii la kala baxo dhibaatooyin fara badan lagu soo kacayso cadowga naga faa'iideysan hadda waarta wadankeena wax ka wada dhacaya Ogaden oo kale Soomaaliland oo kale sidoo kale wax dhuman kala baxan marka aan isku duubnaado jazakumullah intaasaan dhiilaa marka
maanta waxaa la iskugu imaaday jaamacadda University Birmingham oo aad u jaamacadaha waaweyn ka mid Soomaali dhalinyaro badan iskugu imaaday oo maasha Allah aad ugu faraxsanahay.
Professor Yusuf Adami oo munaasabadan dhalinyarada jaamacadda Birmingham ka soo qayb galay isla markaasna ahaa marti sharaf ayaa waxaa noo suurta gashay inaan wax ka weydiino bal sida uu u arkay munaasabadan dhalinyaradu soo qaban qaabisay.
waxaan sheegi karaa meeshan waxa ka dhacay waxaan filaynin dhalinyaradeenii ku baratay dalkan aynu ku noolahay oo qadiyadoodii isu taagtay oo halgankii bilaabay oo halgankana midho ka keenayaan u arkay runtiina waxa weeye waa wax lagu farxo aad baan ugu farxsanahay dhalinyaradeenii Yurub ku kortay ama ku dhalatay inay heerka taagan yihiin oo dalkoodii iyo dadkoodii ay saa ugu halgamayaan weligay kuma fikirin marka waa wax lagu farxiro waa lagu farxo waana ku hambalyeynaya aad iyo aad baan ugu hambalyeynaya horeyna ha u socdeen waxaan leenahay midhay keenayaan arintaasi midhay keenaysaa qadiyadeennii iyo danteennii iyo dhulkeenniiba midho fiican bay u keenaysaa aragtidaydu waa saa.
munaasabadan oo ay ka soo qayb galeen dhalinyaro gaadhaysa 100 arday oo wax ka barta jaamacadaha Birmingham gaar ahaan Jaamacada Birmingham University ayaa hoosta looga xariiqay sidii loo joogteyn lahaa kulamada noocan oo kale ah iyada oo isla markaasna qodobo laga soo saaray kor loogu qaadayo wacyiga beesha caalamka ee ku aadan sidii loo joojin lahaa loogana hortagi lahaa xasuuqa iyo gadoobfalyada ka socda Ogaden.
Like it was really interesting because I found out how is the situation in Africa and especially in Ethiopia and in Ogaden, and like that I've never heard about it, like especially I don't know, like I didn't know about it. So
yeah, it was the first meeting and I had no idea that there was this massacre going on, so I think it was really helpful and useful to know that there was this genocide so that we can do something about it.
Well, to spread it as well to my friends and to know like how we can help them by enjoying to the organizations or the human rights or like to help them and make some campaign as well.
Well, just knowing that these things exist is the most important thing, and with this knowledge we can try and find a solution to it, because if you don't know that there is a problem, it's impossible to find a solution.
Hello, assalamu alaikum, my name is Jaamacada, and this is my first time coming to this event held in University of Birmingham, and I've got to say it was a real eye-opener because it really showed us the problems in which the Ogaden people face that we never really knew about prior to this event. And I'm really happy as we came up with constructive points and solutions for the future and how we can resolve this problem and hopefully give a more prosperous life to the people of Ogaden and uplift the oppression which is going on. Thank you.
This was my first time attending an Ogaden event. That was raising the awareness of the Ogaden people. I think it's important that once in a while we come together to talk about the problems that the people back home are facing, and it's something that really I didn't know, and it's an eye-opener, and it was a really good event.
haatan daawadayaal ku soo dhawaada barnaamij aan idinka soo diyaarinay khubaro ka hadashay qadiyada Ogaden annaga oo muuqaalo ka soo qaadan doona shirweynihii jaarida Soomaalida Ogaden ee lagu qabtay magaalada London.
lamba xaysoy meladi wasaqay 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 libinteeda adduunyo geesigaan libqanayni dhulkisii lumay wayo heeloloogay warabe uloltamahaya adduunko libta soo celinaya lamba xaysoy meledi waasukugu dhamay.
Thank you very much for the invitation to speak here. It is a great honour in view of the international nature of this conference, and I am very much humbled to speak with such honoured and prestigious guests. Over the last few years I've been interviewing refugees from Ethiopia. These are all refugees from Ethiopia, mostly Oromo refugees, but there are refugees from each of the different regions that I interviewed. Overall, there were 187 interviewees, and a lot of what I've found out is direct testimony from these refugees, and I'm going to share some of this with you this afternoon.
Dr. Trevor oo isagu khabiir ku xeeldheer siyaasadda geeska Afrika gaar ahaan arrimaha xuquuqul insaanka Itoobiya ayaa macluumaad uu ka sameeyay arrimaha xuquuqul insaanka Itoobiya kaga warramay tacdiida Ogadeniya. Dr. Trevor oo cilmi baadhista kaga wareysay haween iyo dhibanayaal ka soo jeeda dhulka Soomaalida Ogaden ayaa sheegay in tacdiida ugu badan ka dhacaan dhulka Ogaden.
These are the different administrative regions of Ethiopia. I put this slide to show the people that I'm concerned mostly with are, as you know, Oromo, who are the largest numerical group in Ethiopia. And because of that, and because they're seen as the biggest threat to the Ethiopian government, they come in for the brunt of abuses. However, per head of population, the people of the Ogaden suffer more human rights abuses than any other region in Ethiopia. This is Kakuma refugee camp, where I interviewed this lady Hadija. She was 40 when I interviewed her. Her husband was detained and disappeared in 2003. She was detained shortly afterwards for 4 months in a military camp. She was kept naked apart from a shawl, and she told me how she was dragged across the floor by her hair. 4 times in the first month that she was in detention, she was taken out with 2 soldiers to a pit in the ground, a large pit, in which they'd thrown bodies of people they'd murdered in the military camp. She was taken up to the edge of this pit and then back again, to the edge and back 3 times, with a soldier in front and a soldier behind. The soldier in front looked at the soldier behind and said, "Don't shoot." And she heard this gun being cocked, got ready, and then fainted. She was released when she signed a document saying that she would agree not to do what her husband had done. And then in 2006, she was again arrested, taken to a different military camp. This time she was held for 6 months. She was taken at night to the same pit, using a different route. She'd also beaten so severely that she was unable to stand to go to the toilet. In her cell there were 3 women, and she was beaten so badly that she was unable to go to the toilet. She just had to relieve herself where she lay. One of the other women in detention with her was beaten so severely she had a fractured skull. She started bleeding from her nose and her ears and died. She was eventually released after signing a document saying that she would agree to produce the names and the villages of all her husband's acquaintances. She ran away with 2 of her 3 children. She's left one of her sons in Ethiopia. She washed clothes in Nairobi for 2 or 3 years before finding out about UNHCR and Kakuma camp. This is Hagadira camp, one of the Dadaab camp complex camps. There are now 5 in Dadaab. It's 500,000 people in Dadaab, the largest refugee concentration in the world. This is the summary of the torture of the 187 interviewees. Most academic studies of torture amongst refugees give a percentage of about 5 to 35% who have been tortured. And so amongst Oromo and Somali refugees, the total has been found in other studies to be in excess of that. Certainly Ethiopia is in the top division of torturers throughout the world. Of the 187 interviewees, they were able to name 372 people who'd been killed. This wasn't people like Rare seeing hundreds of people shot dead in the street. This was people known by my informants. 84 of these people were first-degree relatives, as husbands and wives, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters. Now, there are at least 250,000 Oromo refugees over the planet, and at least 500,000 others over the planet from Ethiopia. If those figures are reproduced by the other refugees, even 1/10 of them, that's an awful lot of dead bodies in Ethiopia. This is Habiba. I interviewed her in Kakuma. Her husband was detained and disappeared, and within a few days, within 1 week, 8 soldiers came to her compound in her village. They said they were looking for documents, but they took her and her 1-year-old twins into the bush, and these 8 soldiers raped her for 4 hours. Foolishly, I asked her what she did then. She said, when you've been raped by 8 soldiers for 4 hours, you cannot do anything. She was unable to walk and was found by neighbours the next morning in the bush. This is Khadija. She's an Amhara, but a Muslim Amhara from a minority group in Wollo. Her father and brother ran off to join the Ethiopian Patriotic Front in 1992. Soldiers came, took away her mother, who disappeared in detention. One of the soldiers remained behind and raped Khadija in her home. She was 14 years old at the time. Amina was 11 or 12 years old when soldiers came and took away both her parents, 2 brothers and a sister. 2 soldiers remained behind and raped her in a nearby forest where she was found by neighbours the next day. As I say, she was 11 or 12 years old. She's an Amhara woman. This is South Africa, where I interviewed Ardo, a lady from the Ogaden. Her sister lost 2 husbands, one in the 1990s, one shot dead in his hut in 2004. In 2005, her father and brother were shot dead when watering their camels in a nearby well. In 2006, soldiers came to her village, shot her mother dead in her kitchen, and then when her sister-in-law came out to see what was going on, they shot her dead. Later that evening, they came and took away Ardo's husband. He was taken away handcuffed and blindfolded and disappeared in detention. 1 year later, they came for Ardo herself. Her children and her sister's children she had to leave with her brother's family, and she was marched off with 120 soldiers and 13 men that they'd captured from nearby villages, and a 14-year-old girl from her village called Rukia. They were marched for 12 days to a military camp in Gode. She was from the Nagob district in Ogaden. She was tied, her hands were tied in front of her during the day and behind her at night around a tree. They beat her so badly with rifle butts that she broke her scapula. She had bleeding into her urine from a damaged kidney which lasted nearly a year. She miscarried a 4-month pregnancy that she had as she set off, and she was stabbed about the neck and shoulders. But she said the worst thing when she was tied to this tree at night was listening to the screams of this 14-year-old Rukia as she was repeatedly gang raped by the 120 soldiers. She said sometimes the screams stopped at midnight and sometimes they continued throughout the night. On the 9th day, they strangled to death 2 of the men that they captured. On the 10th day, this 14-year-old girl was no longer able to walk, because of the injuries from rape, and she was strangled to death in front of the others. Ordo was then detained in Godé for 17 months in a cell so small she could not lie down, she could not stand up. She remained in a sitting position throughout the day and night, allowed out just twice a day to go to the toilet, and every 3 weeks or so she was taken out for interrogation and beaten unconscious before she was returned to the cell. She managed to escape, thankfully, and eventually made her way to Johannesburg. Now, Ethiopia doesn't produce more refugees than any other country in the world. In fact, it is 20th in the league tables of refugee producers. However, if you look at the number of people who are just waiting for a decision regarding their refugee claim at the end of a year, there are only 2 countries that are higher than Ethiopia. That's Afghanistan and DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. Ethiopia is the third most common country of origin for those pending their decision. There are still millions of people short of food in Ethiopia. Despite this, despite it receiving more aid from Britain than any other country in the world, despite having between a quarter and a third of its budget in foreign aid, Ethiopia continues to have the same number of people dependent on food aid. It's built one of the biggest and best equipped armies in Africa, and it is now giving away, virtually giving away land for foreign investors, saying it is spare agricultural land, despite these millions of people who are short of food. Now, this is quite obviously madness. To any child could see this as silly. All the peoples of Ethiopia are suffering because the USA and the UK want to deal only with the strong men in power in Ethiopia. Change in Ethiopia may be bloody, protracted, the country may fragment, there will be a power vacuum, as we've seen in Egypt, Libya, Yugoslavia, Syria, Iraq, because there's no mechanism, no means with which different groups can have a dialogue to discuss things and to plan things. We need dialogue and planning among different groups now. If all of us complained as one about the abductions and refoulement of the ONLF leaders in Nairobi in January of this year, or Andargachu Tige, the Ginbot 7 head, who was abducted and sent back to Ethiopia from Yemen. If we all worked together, then we would be far more effective. At the moment, the divide and rule policies of the Ethiopian government are succeeding. Nobody takes the opposition seriously because it is divided and weak. So we must combine our forces and become strong. If we want to oppose the government of Ethiopia, then we shouldn't do its bidding and not fight alongside the other peoples of Ethiopia. We must do it together. Thank you very much.
Bilaaway برشا ونكسر بالله بشارة برحمانة المكة صبح لنا
بالخير باري ويلا ومكة صبح لنا
بشارة برحمانة المكة صبح لنا
بالخير باري ويلا ومكة صبح لنا
هذا الناس يهرب بالله يلي يخرجون بالله الحياة والدنيا بالله المباح الكراي بالله المبارشة ونكسر بالله بشارة برحمانة المكة صبح لنا
بالخير باري ويلا ومكة صبح لنا
بشارة برحمانة المكة صبح لنا
بالخير باري ويلا ومكة صبح لنا
daawayaal sida aad ku daawateen barnaamijyadii hore ee ka baxay Ilays TV jabhadda wadaniga xoreynta Ogaadeniya waxaa lagu qabtay xarunta baarlamaanka Yurub dhageysi lagu gorfeynayo qadiyada Ogaden dhageysigna goobjoog ka ahaayeen xubno ka mid ah baarlamaanka Yurub iyo hay'adda xuquuqul insaanka ayaa jabhadda ONLF ay ku soo jeedisay warbixin ay dhageysin kaga hadashay halganka ka socda Ogaden iyo waxyeelada gumaysiga kula kaco shacabka aan isdifaaci karin warbixintan oo uu soo jeediyay Dr. Bedel nala daawada
Madam Chair, Ms. Anna Maria Gomez, Ms. Julia Ward, Mr. Marino, Starking Secretary General of UNPO, dignitaries of ONLF and Group 7, civil societies, community representatives, honorable delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the Ogaden people, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation and gratitude to the organizers of the conference, especially the members of the European Parliament, the UNPO, members of the progressive parties, journalists, civil societies, friends of human rights, for organizing this important conference on this important time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and opportunity for me to be here with you to convey our deepest concern about the increasing atrocities and human rights violations in the Ogaden. As we heard from the previous presenters, our people are under siege and systematically oppressed by the present and the past regimes in Ethiopia, regardless of their ideological diversity, from absolute monarchy to communist military dictators to the current one. They systematically and equally oppressed and segregated our people politically, economically, and socially. Hence, the aim of our struggle led by Ogaden National Liberation Front is generally to remove the suffering and the oppression our people face and to achieve our democratic rights for self-determination. More specifically, through democratic governing system, our specific aims are to enhance the social well-being and the economic prosperity of our people, protect the dignity and the rights of our people, to utilize our natural resources sustainably for our present and future generations, and to promote democracy, tolerances, good governances, and human rights. After 20 years of consecutive military confrontation with Ethiopia, through military uprising and social uprising as well, with all its efforts, Ethiopia has failed to silence our struggle. However, contrary to human rights conventions, moral principles, democratic values, Ethiopia has chosen to use collective social punishment against our people, particularly women, children, and parents, as a means of social subjugation, instead of finding a long-lasting and durable political solution in a peaceful way. Ladies and gentlemen, for the last 5 years, tens and thousands of our civilians have been arbitrarily detained, killed, raped, tortured, displaced, disappeared, abducted, and looted. In several cases, many of them have been executed, raped, and humiliated in other ways in public, just for the purpose of creating an atmosphere of absolute fear. Several villages and hundreds of remote area locations have been burned, whilst the livestock and other livelihood assets has been confiscated. The killings and the abductions do not take place only within our geographical area, but also in the neighboring countries where our people seek refuge, such as Djibouti, Kenya, and Somalia as well. Furthermore, in order to impoverish our people, the Addis Ababa regime has imposed a trade embargo and humanitarian blockade in Ogaden. They closed all the borders and banned all local trades and traders except a few licensed cooperating traders, and that has caused a shortage of food and other commodities in the local market and increased the food prices. On top of that, they banned or prohibited all the humanitarian organizations, the independent ones, as well as journalists to access and to cover the truth and what's happening inside the Ogaden. Ogaden is not only facing ethnic cleansing and social deterioration, but also environmental degradation and ecosystem degradation. Ogaden is a rich country endowed with diverse plant, animal, and mineral resources. It's a habitat for many endemic, rare, and endangered plants and animals. As reported by the Ethiopian Environmental Protection Authority itself, Ogaden is a habitat for more than 25% of the 700 endemic species recorded in Ethiopia. That means 175 species are confined only within Ogaden and nowhere else in the world. It also has potential untapped oil and gas reserves that can lift millions of people in the Horn of Africa out of extreme poverty and contribute to the global economy. Therefore, the resources exploitation and ecosystem degradation and degradation of our livelihood assets is not only coming from the regime in Addis Ababa, but also international and oil and gas companies exploration that has been granted illegal land rights by the regime. Due to the aforementioned atrocious acts coupled with the frequent droughts and other climate change variability, both the people and the land of Ogaden is in danger. Your Excellency, we believe that the people in the Horn of Africa within their ethnic and religious diversity can live side by side in peace and harmony based on democratic principles, rights to self-determination, justice, equality, and freedom without being superior to anyone or inferior to anyone, because only free people can make free choice. However, the above beliefs and good wishes cannot be promoted neither through military forces nor social terrorization or creation of puppet administrations, militia, or divide and rule policies. Instead, it can only be proud through the implementation of universal democratic rights, principles, and negotiations, which require recognitions, commitments, sincerity, trust, and assurances from all sides. We believe continuing military confrontation in Ogaden will only cause more deaths, abuses, displacement, social fragmentation, ethnic hatred, poverty, environmental degradation, and wasting of financial resources that could be used for other social and environmental developments, particularly in education, health, water, and sanitation sectors. The social operation in Ogaden, together with the impacts of the global climate change, will eventually result in additional humanitarian crisis consequences, as well as regional and global security concerns. The Ogaden conflict will not remain only locally, but it will be a regional and even international conflict. If Ethiopian regime continues its arrogances, ignorances, and social terrorization against the people of Ogadenia, and international community remains silent, the consequences will be irreversible. As a dryland ecosystem, Ogaden is one of the most vulnerable to climate change, exacerbated by existing developmental challenges, such as endemic poverty, poor infrastructure, ecosystem degradation, chronic food insecurity, conflicts, political isolation, lack of health and education facilities, limited access to economic development, high illiteracy, bad governances, and gender disparity. Each year, thousands of our pastoral youths migrate from countryside to cities as a result of drought and political conflicts with no urban culture, no profession, and no government that transforms their livelihood. Therefore, we have serious concern about the fate of our people. Our greatest concern is about the possible outbreak of sexually transmitted diseases due to widespread rape cases and lack of knowledge and prevention means. Our youth are in a risk of exploitation as approximately 70% of our population are under the age of 30. Thousands of our youth, as we heard, are currently recruited as a local militia by the Ethiopian Defense Forces as a military shield against for the Ethiopian army in the region. Many of them are under the age of 18. Hundreds of our youth die each year in the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea and the desert between Sudan and Libya on their way to the Gulf states and Western Europe looking for a better life. To pressure the Ethiopian government to lift the trade embargo and allow trade to resume. To pressure the Ethiopian government to allow humanitarian organizations to enter and operate freely in Ogaden. To deliver humanitarian assistance to the needy people. To pressure the Ethiopian government to allow journalists, human rights groups, to enter and investigate the human rights crimes against humanity committed by the Ethiopian soldiers in Ogaden, to support our community-based organizations, because most of the the humanitarian support that the Western countries as a whole are giving to Ethiopia, it's not reaching our people. Therefore, we are appealing that you provide the such supports to our community-based organizations so that they can support our people suffering in the Horn of Africa, to pressure the Ethiopian government to come to the negotiation table, to solve the Ogaden conflict in a peaceful way, and also the Oromo, the Amfar, and the others, in a peaceful way without any precondition of saying that accept our constitution or obey our order or anything, any precondition. To pressure the Ethiopian government to stop land grabbing and environmental exploitation. And we are also calling the oil companies involving exploration in Ogaden to stop their illegal activities before a political solution is reached in Ogaden. Honorable delegates, ladies and gentlemen, before I finish my speech, I would like to tell the good and the great people of Ethiopia who share our struggle with us and support our quest for freedom, whether we all like you and not hate you, whether you are Oromo, Amara, Tigray, Sidamo, Amfar, Gambela, or any other ethnic group. We are all brothers and sisters, and we hope that you share with us the feelings and the difficulties our people are facing as they are in the hand of the regime. Finally, once again, I would like to thank all of you for your time and contributions to this conference. I would like to take this opportunity to extend my sincere appreciation to Madam Anna Maria Gomez and Mr. Marina Bosdakin for standing beside the people of Ogaden and the people of Ethiopia at large for the support of human rights on this very difficult time of our life. Thank you for your patience, thank you for listening, and thank you, and pardon me if I take extra time that you've given to me. Thank you a lot.
Thank you for sharing with us possible strategies for ending this Ethiopian inferno that we have heard so much about today. I am sorry that we are a few minutes past 6. But I am, however, convinced that the discussions that we had today were extremely fruitful and laid the ground for future debates and even concrete policy actions that can be taken in the future. Unfortunately, we don't have time left for questions and answers, but as was announced today by the UNPO General Secretary, Mr. Yamina Buzdakin, there will be a follow-up, bigger conference on Ethiopia where we can delve into these issues even further.
daawayaal barnaamijkan ku eegaynay munaasabada baradiiqda ahayd ee lagu qabtay Jaamacada Birmingham warbixintii Dr. Trevor kaga hadlayay xasuuqa Ogaden iyo warbixintii jawaabta ONLF ka sameysay dhageysiga guriga baarlamaanka Yurub halkaas ayuu inoogu egyahay waxaana idin soo gudbinayay anigoo ah Cabdirashiid intaynu dib hawada ugu kulmi doono sidaas iyo kulanti dambe oo xiiso leh